All right. Welcome, everyone, to the People Strategy Forum podcast. So we're a show that guides leaders to elevate their game at the workplace. So for their people and creating those more people-centric workplaces, because we believe that people are at the heart of successful organizations. And team members' well-being and rewards and career development are essential to a happy and healthy and highly productive workforce. And so today we have a group of we're getting towards the holiday season. So we have just Howard and myself here today as hosts. Shar Miller and Smith Singla are preparing for the holidays. And so we wish them the best there. But we do have a couple special guests today that I want to introduce. First, meet Adam Hurd, expert and co-founder of Empowerl. With 24 years of financial service experience, he currently is serving as president of a flourishing New York planning firm as a plan fiduciary advisor. So Adam guides companies from their first million to multi-million dollar exits through his published books, business podcasts, and roles advising startups and Fortune 100 companies alike. Adam personifies the wisdom honed from varied business leadership. So we're glad to have him here. Also, we have joining with us is Tom Marino, healthcare executive and certified life coach, holding a master's in physician assistant studies. So Tom champions the philosophy called adrenalized living. And so we're going to learn a little bit more about that in today's discussion. But it promotes daily gratitude and embracing challenges and acting purposefully and sustaining momentum. From his books to hosting his own radio show and leading major health systems through transformations, Tom has proven leadership and personalized growth lens that offers an invaluable perspective for you leaders out there listening in. So with their combined expertise spanning sectors and companies and roles, Adam and Tom offer actionable leadership development for listeners at any stage. So let's tune in and learn a little bit more about effective leadership from Adam and Tom. So the first piece that I would just like to say, welcome both of you to the show. So thank you for joining us.
Yeah,
Thanks
thank
for
you very
having
much for
us.
having us.
Yeah. What do we typically do when we start these discussions off is just kind of dig in a little bit to your background. I mean, so let's just start with you, Adam. I mean, what really got you in a place where you wanted to help business leaders succeed in your coaching of businesses overall?
Yeah, great question. And again, thanks for having us on. We really love what you're doing, which is to kind of exemplify and help steward leaders into cultivating themselves, their teams, their companies. So we appreciate again having you on here. Nice to meet you, Howard. So yeah, how did I get into this, and why do I have a passion for really helping business owners or leaders to become into that? Is I knew exactly what I wanted to do when I was 16 years old, which is extremely rare at any time and any age. And I was thrust into this program called the Academy of Finance. And I actually got to go for 2.5 years to Hofstra University in high school. And the Academy of Finance taught you all about, you really took college courses all about finance. And I knew this is where I wanted to be. I ended up going to work for a bank and was wonderful, had my dream job, became an assistant vice president for Citigroup, and realized it was a dead end because my leader told me if I ever wanted to become a higher leader, that I had to wait for that guy over there to die. And I said, what? He's like, yeah, this is a lifetime job, lifetime roles, and you'll never ascend past that person until they either leave or expire. And I said, wow, this is not for me. And I started looking at other ventures. Well, I ended up going to work for a company called MetLife. They were very different when I worked for them. Now they've sold most of their assets off, and they're just kind of like this group term insurance company now. Um, and when I went to work there, they were trying to change their culture from a life insurance company to a holistic advising company. And I became a financial planner. And I was part of the MetLife Premier Client Group. And what I noticed was as I was helping people with financial planning, the people who gravitated to me most were business owners. And my mission was to really help people who were young families and small business owners. My best clients were the ones who were young families and small business owners. So they had a lot of new things they were going through in their life. And they had to have leadership at home and leadership in the business. And this just really allowed me to explore all these new areas. And I didn't ever think this is what I was going to be doing. I thought I'd be working on Wall Street, doing quant or analysis or something like that. So I evolved into this position, and people say, find what you love to do, and you never work a day in your life. I look at it as find what you are really good at, and you'll learn to love it. That's right. It's easier to love what you're good at than try to butt up against a wall and not be good at something and try to love it simultaneously. So that led me to doing more of consulting and coaching and things of that nature on my own. And then I found Tom, and I'm sure we can transition into how we built our company together. But really, what I try to do in every aspect of my life is help change people's lives by bringing confidence and clarity to decision making.
That's how, it's so powerful. I mean, and it's interesting that it's I think Howard and I also have a similar background in the financial services industry. So
I was at City as well. Merrill prior to that.
Ah, there you go.
Yeah. And so definitely some similar type of experiences overall. But Tom, tell us a little bit about your past and how you got here.
Yeah, so I started out as a physician assistant. I worked in healthcare for 22 years up until retiring back in the summer of this year in July, from healthcare entirely to move into our coaching business full time. And it all started out like I've always been there to help people to solve problems and to find solutions, whether it was a medical problem or it was a operational problem, as I held many administrative roles over the last 15 years of my career, working as a VP of operations for one of the largest multi-specialty group practices in the state of New York, where we had 36 locations throughout Brooklyn, Queens, Long Island, and Manhattan, and Staten Island. And I was the regional vice president of operations for the Brooklyn and Queens regions and had 16 medical practices and 700 people in my portfolio. And every day I was always looking for what are the new opportunities, what are the ways to really expand and improve the services that we provided to our patients. Because I believe that as a leader in the organization, I had a responsibility to continue to serve our patients to the best of our ability and provide as much for them. And, along the way, you work in healthcare, you work long hours in healthcare. It's pretty crazy at times. And I found myself burning out back in 2017. And I left one job to go to another job to become a chief operating officer, and absolutely could not stand that job after 60 days. So I left and I started my own healthcare consulting business, took on a few clients, and it was one of the best years of my life that happened for me. A moment of burnout and despair led to this incredible opportunity to really take care of myself and to take control of my own destiny. And, I started that consulting business and I was like, wait a second, I got to show other people how to do this. I have to show people how to take control of their life, take control of their destiny, and really fulfill their purpose and find fulfillment in their life through the work that they do. Because I had lost that sense of purpose along the way and was looking for a way back to it. And I wanted people to experience the same fulfillment that I got to experience by taking charge of my own life. And so in 2019, I started a coaching business, a life coaching business mostly, where I was working with people on career transitions and relationship transitions. So whether they were changing jobs or deciding to open their own business, or if they were just getting out of a bad relationship or divorce and really looking for a new direction in their life and helping them through that process. And back in 2020, Adam and I, hooked up through a networking group that Adam had started called Long Island Networkers. And after a while, we did a few events together. I was at a bunch of things. It was mostly on Zoom because it was 2020 and COVID era. But then when we started to see each other in person, we really got into really great conversations about what each other did. And at that point, I was coaching a lot of business owners on relationships and lifestyle and all of this other stuff. And Adam was like, well, I'm really coaching people on their businesses and they need lifestyle help and mindset changes and all of that. And that's how the two of us came together to form Atomic Business Coaching, was to bring both of our expertise, where Adam really works on the confidence and clarity, as he said, and I work on mindset and momentum. I help people to get the right mindset. I help the owner of the business to form the right mindset, to be able to take action and make better decisions with and gain momentum in their businesses and in their life to create this life harmony that Adam and I strive for everybody that we work with.
So I have to ask, why the name Atomic?
That's
Well,
funny. I had someone just recently figure it out. So what are our names?
Oh, Adam and Tom Marino. Got it.
Adam.
Adam
So we
T.
were like gonna use our normal names and everything else, and we had this epiphany together, and it's like Adam and Adam. And we originally had like an Adam as our logo and everything else. And then I mentioned it to a PR person. She's like, yeah, no one's gonna get Adam, ATOM. What about Atomic? And I'm like, even better, because everything we do is providing energy to our leaders, right? We're giving them energy. And it's like it just kind of happened to work out beautifully. And then our logo is an atom, but the nucleus, instead of being what it's supposed to be, it's actually a brain that's bifurcated, because we really work on two separate aspects. I work on the business, Tom works on the owner.
Great.
That's awesome. And
I know
it's
what
so
you guys-
powerful too. Yeah. So because when you just think about what you're bringing to leaders, I mean, there's that balance, because when a lot of times, and especially in the financial industry, I mean, we're often thinking about, the generating wealth in addition to taking care of others, and ensuring you have the fiduciary responsibility, right? And then and sometimes that's that sacrifice to our own selves and our health. And so it's great to see the both of you together, and Tom brings that personal side, that health and wellness side, and life coaching. So I think it's an awesome, powerful combination for sure.
And Sam, you know what happened was when we worked with our first client, we did it for free to see, like, as a beta test, does this work, right? And once we did that work, we realized that you cannot have a good business, which is mainly what I work on, without having a good owner. And you can't be a good owner without having a good business. And once we started working with our first client, we realized that it would be a shame for us to try to individually work on these things, because we were just, as we did it simultaneously, because we meet with our clients weekly. I meet with them for an hour, then Tom meets with them for an hour. So we're really holistically approaching not just the business and the owner, but the overall success of the company and the individual. And once we saw how it expedited their success, their fulfillment in life, their freedom and what they could do each and every day with their families and vacations and travel, we were like, there's no way we can ever go back.
Yeah, and I think you just hit on it too. I mean, the key word of freedom. There's I think that a lot of us are seeking the the real freedom that we want, the freedom to being with the people that we love, and focusing on things that really make a difference in our lives. So glad to hear that's the perspective there. But one of the things I often find is when people either when practitioners are moving into a leadership role, or if you're a practitioner that's wanting to start your own business, such as you gentlemen have done in your lives, there's often a transition that needs to happen, a change in mindset. And so, what are some of the common traits that you see that practitioners struggle with when they're thinking about taking on those new leadership positions?
You know,
Yes. Go ahead, Adam. You start. No, go ahead. You
Okay.
start.
Well, I would say before they transition, they really have to make a decision: is this the right thing to do? Because what I see many times is someone is a practitioner and they're really good at what they do. And then they decide, hey, you know what? I can do this on my own. I'm smarter than my boss. I know how to do these things. I have all the connections. I'm bringing in all the revenue. Why can't I just do this on my own? And they're a fantastic practitioner, but they have no leadership skills. So you have to develop those before you can start a business. And here's another mistake I see with established businesses, is where they want to promote someone to leadership. And this happens in sales. I see it. It's ubiquitous across all sales, where they find the rock star salesperson. They're like, you know what? We're going to make you the sales manager. And then nothing ever works out, because they're not a good manager. They're a good salesperson. Right. And as you do this, as you transition, or you're considering transition, you have to primarily say, hey, do I want to be a leader, Or do I want to be the best practitioner possible and hire someone to lead me? You're allowed to own your own business and report to somebody else. And most people don't understand that's a possibility. Also, their ego gets in the way as well. But that's something that I say you have to start with is, are you really leadership material? It's not a negative thing if you're not. Not everybody's a leader, right? Some of the most wealthy people in the world are the best number twos. Okay. So it's first, I think, is establishing, is that who you really are and what you really want.
And I'll add to that that, the shift in mindset, Sam, that so many people go through. A lot of people that start their own business are really just self-employed, and they've created a job for themselves. And it's very difficult to go from that employee mindset to employer or owner mindset. It's a very significant shift that needs to take place, because you have to reformulate your entire life and how you approach it. You have to reformulate how you look at all of your relationships, how you manage your different relationships with your family. What boundaries do you need to now put in place to continue to build a business? It's not, you don't stop working at 5 o'clock anymore, right? It's a change from that 9 to 5 to working all of the time, being the business owner all of the time. I mean, Adam and I were having a conversation earlier today where he really just reminded me too, myself at times, that I have to remember I'm the business owner all of the time. I can't just turn it off at 5 o'clock, or just because I'm hanging out with Joe doesn't mean that I stop being the business owner. And it really is a significant mindset shift that takes place. But that's where the decision of who you want to be in this business is really important. And some people just want to be the practitioner. We're working with a physical therapist right now. She is a phenomenal physical therapist, one of the top notch. She gets athletes from that surgical table right back onto the field. She's got a great program. And she just loves working with patients. She does not want to deal with insurance companies and denials and front desk operations and all. She just wants to see the people. And we have to help her now put all of the structure in place to support that business so that she can be the practitioner, because she's choosing to be that rather than be the leader. But you're going to need a leader of that practice to keep everybody on track, to keep the vision moving in the right direction. But like Adam said, you don't always have to be the one as the owner of the business providing all of that.
How do you convince, like a lot of times we see owners and they think they can do it all, and they go down the road of trying to manage the entire business that they've had this brilliant idea to move forward with, but more often than not we've seen them be terrible managers. How do you get them to the point where they realize, what, this isn't the right position for me to be managing the day-to-day operations?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think inside of leadership alone, and whether you're doing this for yourself or somebody else, you really have to allow people to make mistakes. Okay, whether that's yourself in my first trial run as the leader, but when you make the mistakes, it's not a bad thing, right? You have to look at these mistakes as opportunities to grow, opportunities to learn, opportunities to pivot, right? And many someone, I don't know who said this quote, but they're like, success is standing on top of a pile of mistakes instead of laying underneath it. It's a really, I don't know, I might be Dave Ramsey, I don't know. It's a good quote.
Yeah.
Regardless of how we all think about Dave Ramsey, whether or not you like him or not. But the one of the keys here is how do we really help them with that is, when you transition to a leader, you have to understand from here on out, you only have one job. Okay. As a practitioner, you have many roles and responsibilities. So as a leader, your one job is to really help people to generate and help the company to generate revenue through development. And that development is development of sales opportunities, development of new products and services, development of your people, and development of processes. That is your sole job from here on out. How do I generate revenue through the development of other people or things? And if you try to go back to, well, I'm going to do the work because at one time I was the best at it, you are going to regress not only yourself, but your company, your people, and unfortunately, then your clients.
And one of the things that we subscribe to as in considering how to develop leaders within their organization is this idea of conscious leadership. Jim Detmer and a few people wrote this book around what the 15 commitments of conscious leadership. And we really embrace that conscious leadership approach when we're working with our clients as well. And the very simple way that you have a conscious leader versus a not conscious leader is the difference between someone who victimizes themselves and gets defensive and always has to be right and turns that off and is able to be open to suggestion and curious and ask more questions of their people and get them to a place where they're always learning. And that's what we try to embody in every one of our clients, is that be open and curious, always be learning, always see it as there's always a potential opportunity. Don't victimize yourself. Don't be closed off. Don't be that defensive person. And a lot of, Howard, to answer your question a little bit further, one of the things that a lot of business owners, when they wind up coming to us, it's pretty easy sometimes to convince them that they're in their own way because they're stuck or they don't know what the direction is forward, and they've become their biggest obstacle. So it's not so much that we have to convince them that they're in their own way. They start to recognize it quite easily because their business is not going forward, and they realize, oh man, I have to be part of that root cause. And that's when we're able to really help somebody the most. And when we can get them to that point, we can take off and do tremendous things for their organization.
So that's excellent. And also, and just to kind of build on this, I know that you're both of you just released a new book, right? Is that correct?
Yes.
That has these points. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Adam, you want to take it?
Sure. Yeah. So the new book is called The Atomic Game Changer. And what this book is really built on are these 9 principles. And, Tom, when he was, 20 plus years in healthcare, he worked in doctor's offices and hospitals. And every hospital, my wife, she runs the operating room for NYU. They have these standards that they have to adhere to. And that's what we look at as principles of standards in your life, right? Things that you have to be beholden to and things that you have to make sure you adhere to in your life. But what happens is you tend to veer off the track and you forget about that principle. So what we created are a book that is used more as a reference. So when you're lacking one of these very specific areas, you can go back in and recognize what are the symptoms. We actually wrote it in a very clever way, where it's like, here's your symptoms, here's your diagnosis, here's your antidote, and here's your prescription. It was kind of dovetailing off of Tom's previous experience, and it worked out well for very systematically dealing with I'm lacking in this principle. And the goal really is that when you are struggling with one of these areas, you look at it, we give you these 10 different tips for each chapter on what you could do. And you pick one of them and you do that right now, and you should be able to move forward and move through that latency of that standard and get back onto the track of progress. The way that we built these 9 standards is we started to reflect back on all the people we've worked with over our 4 decades of work and who was the most successful. Okay. How did they get there? What did they embody? What characteristics did they have? What standards did they live by? And as we wrote these down, there was so much crossover between these 9 that we were like, oh my gosh, we have to write something about this and tell the world. So that's a little bit about it from me.
Yeah, and I love the principles that we came up with in this book because they really do lead to success. I mean, we touch upon things like gaining clarity and being in your zone of genius and how you have to surrender to old ways so that you can formulate the different new habits that you need to be successful running your business. We talk about vitality and how there's the mental energy and the physical energy that is necessary for you as a business owner to really do everything that you have to do. And you have to be good here in your mind and as well as in your body. We talk about empowering and being able to delegate more to people. That empowerment is empowering other people to do what you need them to do so that you could focus on the priorities that you as the business owner need to be focused on. We talk about, productive neglect, which is really how do you eliminate distractions in your life, and talk about harmony. And harmony for us is one of our biggest goals for every single one of our clients. It's our motto is to give you a life of harmony. and we destroy that whole myth of work-life balance, and help you to see that work-life balance doesn't exist, and that it's about the harmony and the fluidity of life. And then, it takes patience, and we say we have the principle of aggressive patience. And aggressive patience is really that thing where you have to trust the process, but you have to continue to do the work. You have to put the energy and the effort into everything that you do. And that also takes a lot of grit. If you don't know how to persevere and you're lacking these principles, you struggle as the owner. And the purpose of the book is not to be read continuously. It's meant to be as a desk reference for every business owner. You can literally go to the book and say, I feel like I'm struggling with perseverance. Oh, what was that chapter on grit? Let me read about that. Let me go do these daily reflections. Let me go do these daily ideas that I can address and take action on, and come out of this place of stagnation because I'm lacking the grit that I really need at this moment. And that's really what the goal of the book is to be there for every business owner every day, to help them when they're struggling with one of those principles.
And Tom, would you mind just holding up the book one more time
Sure.
there? And so just for our listeners out there, the 9 principles are illustrated on the front of this, the cover as puzzle pieces, 9 puzzle pieces that fit together to shape the atomic logo, which I think is brilliant. So the important part, and I always like the concept of puzzle pieces, because we need, when we're thinking about a particular solution, we often have to craft something that is going to be the right fit, that's going to work to drive us forward, and no matter what type of company that we're in. And that's part of the reason why I love doing what I'm doing. I love taking a best practice, something that the big box firms would just throw out there and say, hey, put this in place and you be like us, or be like the best. It doesn't work that way, right? You need to think about what is the best way to really craft this and shape this into what's going to be meaningful in the lives of our people, our customers, and and leadership overall. So brilliant. Thank you. So, but one thing I wanted to dig in a little bit more is you're mentioning the perseverance and grit, and I think that this has been some words that certain generations have been plagued with as either being strong or not being strong in, right? So how do you see this as a key function or necessity in the emerging leader?
That's a great question. I think words, people play buzzword bingo all the time now, right? And it's like, oh, it's grit, and it's I'm a hustler and I'm gonna grind, and all these different things. At the end of the day, all that really means is consistency. Okay. And the problem with consistency is people think of it, in my opinion, the wrong way. They think, okay, today I'm going to do 2 hours of this. Tomorrow I'm going to do 2 hours of this. The next day I'm going to do 2. And it's the same over and over and over and over, and mundane and boring. And it's hard to be consistent with something that is super boring, repetition. And they have a word for that. It's manufacturing, right? And you can't manufacture consistency. You have to become consistent. Okay. There's a book, Atomic Habits, no relation to us. But they really talk about that. If you want to have an outcome, a certain outcome that you desire, okay, first of all, you have to identify with that kind of person. And once you identify with that kind of person, you have to say, well, what would a consistent person do? Okay. And that's called process. Okay. And if you do the process of what a consistent person does, the outcome is you are consistent. So it's identity, process, outcome. What most people do is start with the outcome. I want to be disciplined. Okay. I'm going to try to be disciplined today, but you have no process and you don't identify with that. And when you're looking at this repetition, same thing each and every day, that is really not consistency. You today may do something for 5 minutes, and tomorrow 4 hours, and maybe take a day off, and the day after that do it for 3 hours, and the day after that 15 minutes. It means that you continue to persevere through doing it more and more and more. And you have the aggregation of marginal gains by doing that. You get improvement, not all at once, okay? And not through this systematic approach of repetition. Is that needed in certain areas? Yes, but usually not for leaders. Leaders have to be able to adapt to the environment, adapt to the changes, help the people that need it. And you can't just do the same thing over and over, expecting different results.
And so I would like to dive in to that a little bit more, because in my career, I've witnessed the emergence of the woman leader, and it's been the brilliant to where they need to be. You know, it's about time that we've done that, of course. But early on, I noticed that there was a bit of modeling that was going on, and that of course women felt like they saw the image of a leader and they were trying to fit that mold, and the authenticism kind of fell apart at those early stages. It was my experience. I felt like, you know, women need to be women and strong for in their own skin and so forth, not act like the white male that is at the top of the at the top of the house at the time.
The power suit industry is screaming.
Yeah. And so, and when you think about modeling and authenticism, how does that come together?
You know, that's a great insight there, Sam. You know, I've had mostly women CEOs that I have worked for when I was in medicine. The majority of my bosses were women at one point. And, you know, one of the things that I find that working for them is yes, you have those individuals that try to model that male, very alpha male approach. And then you have the ones that really work on developing relationships with people. And I really believe that a lot of women have modeled relationship development better than men in the past, right? Alpha males tend to just want results, right? They're these hyperachievers, saboteurs, and they just want to go to the next thing and move forward. Whereas a lot of women leaders are really cultivating the relationship with the individual to really get the best productivity and the work out of them. That's a personal opinion. That's my own opinion. You know, from my experience of working with several women CEOs, and you do have, and they're very good decision makers. You know, one of the things that I was always impressed is that they would take all this information, but then when it came to the decision, it was easy to make, and they had the confidence to move on with that decision. And I think it's really important that we work with a lot of women co-business owners. We have women business owners. And one of the things that we find is that they are too focused sometimes on the relationship, and we have to pull them into that leadership role. But I think women, you know, the ones that are really building the relationships are ones that are really being much more authentic. And we always, you know, and part of authenticity is speaking your truth. And speaking very truthfully in every situation, and in the right situations, especially where you can't be afraid to share what your truth is. And I do find that people, when they speak their truth, they become more authentic and they become more trustworthy. And I think that's the key, is the trust, the level of trust that a lot of people see executive leadership in is based on how authentic you are. And as we employ more and more of the millennial generation, which I think has amazing, you know, skill sets, but also very strong boundaries, and they have certain expectations. I think one of the biggest things with them is to ensure that as leaders, you are being trustworthy, you are being truthful, you're being transparent, and the more authentic that you are, the better the situation is going to be for that employee, and they're going to stay with that company a lot longer than in the past, where it's that cutthroat, you know what, we're being abused, we're being disrespected, we're not getting, this guy is full of it, you know, and that authenticity is not there. It led to more turnover. And again, it's a conscious leadership versus a not conscious leadership. And women tend to be more open and curious to learning than those other male counterparts in the past.
Yeah, I mean, one of the other things that I think that's really important to recognize right now is I like where you went there with her, Tom. You know, we have a new emergence of a new leader. And, you know, now that we have, you know, both genders of power at the top of organizations, and different ethnicities and groups across the world. We're becoming more of a diverse overall, and we still have work to do, of course. But I think that it's created a new version of leader, one that is more holistic, one that's more humanistic, and I think right now that is being tested because we've gone through this period of the pandemic and working at home and the challenge and the evolution of leadership that's happened during that time. But now we're faced with this terrible economy of this last year and uncertainty in the year ahead. And so that I think that there's been some challenge to that mindset and is being tested. Do you see that in your clients of struggling with being that humanistic and progressive and still now that they're faced with the dollars and cents of potential layoffs and so forth?
Yeah, I don't know if I think I don't know what my opinion on that is, but I can tell you from a perspective that I've seen a lot of different things. And people talk a lot about diversity in either gender or race or skill sets or these things. I think now with empowering more and more women to rise to the top and different ethnicities to rise to the top, I think what that really does is give us a diversity of options, okay? A diversity of thought, a diversity of new ideas. And at the core of leadership, it's really about innovation, not about invention. Okay. Inventors will invent brand new things, but innovators will take old ways of doing things and create a better, more efficient, more effective way of doing it. And for the female leaders that I've seen that decided to blaze their own path instead of just modeling, as I think you said before, modeling what someone else has done and let me follow that route. I think it's opened up the eyes of other leadership to like, wow, there's actually a different way of doing this that is pretty damn effective. Like
Yeah.
I never knew that. So that allows us all to see that there's more choices, more options, new ways of doing things, and that innovation really it helps us all. So I think the more diversity for diversity's sake is like, but for a purpose and an intention, which I am seeing, like Tom said, we have a lot of husband and wife partnerships that are running companies. And when we really beat them up and dig into like what's going on behind the scenes and they're honest with us, the other one usually starts to adopt some of the traits from the other. And they individually become way better and much stronger and better leaders and better salespeople and better practitioners of what they're doing. So that's what I see from everything is this just ubiquitous growth across industry.
Well said.
A lot of counseling going on.
We are coaches, Howard, so
we are coaches. We're not
but
therapists.
sometimes we are therapists. Sometimes we are.
It's part of the job. I mean, it's always funny when one Adam always talks to his clients and the financial planning side of things. When he does that, he has always said that he's more psychologist at times than planner and financial advisor. And as a coach, you just feel that role naturally. But I like to say that coaching is this great alternative to that stigma of therapy, right? Especially life coaches, so I perfectly endorse life coaches to help people with the normal run of the mill stuff, not to be therapists though, but it's a great alternative to it.
Well, we've talked before with some other speakers about, people now in the workplace, they bring their whole selves to the workplace, where before it was like you had to compartmentalize, as this is the business side of me, and then I have a whole nother side of me that no one even knows about. So things are changing, and it is better just holistically for everyone in terms of this is who I am, and I have a life outside of the work environment.
So I know we've talked about the embodiment of what the new leader looks like. We've also spoken about what it takes for either people that are starting their own business or going into their an entrepreneurship, or people that are practitioners going into a leadership role, and what mind shift changes and so forth that they need to accomplish. And so as we wrap up here, can you provide an overview of those key traits that makes a practitioner to a leader successful in organizations?
Yeah, I would say for myself, number one, it's really identify, are you the type of person that can be a leader? And number two, wants to be a leader. Number two is realize that you now have one job, right? And your one job, okay, is to generate revenue through development and development in many different areas, but you have to develop the whole company, the whole team, and even yourself, which is why we do coaching, right? And the main thing is that mindset of like, as you transition to this leader, allow people to make mistakes. Okay. You don't grow from being perfect all the time. You just continue to be perfect. But guess what? There might be way more beyond that. If you put the ceiling on perfection, well, there's a big giant blue sky above you if you allow people to make mistakes, because they're opportunities to figure out better and bigger ways to do things. And one thing that I maybe didn't mention, but I will here, is that most people who are trying to transition from that practitioner to a leader, what really gets in their way, the biggest obstacle that I have seen, is they're waiting for the money to make that decision instead of making the decision to make the money. And I think a lot of times your perception gets in the way of, one day when I get here, then I can become the leader. Well, the moment you get here, you have a whole new set of problems and responsibilities, and you'll just keep kicking the can down the road. So if you can identify, if I am the person who can be the leader, I do want to be the leader, I can transition into this new role, if I have one job and allow people to make mistakes, then make the decision and the money will come.
Yeah, I would add to that, practitioner to leader is, the difference between doing things right and doing the right thing, right? If you as a leader, you could start to think about how do you make things better for everybody at a bigger level. The practitioner is only focused at what's happening right there, hands on, and doing what's right to do at that moment. And I think as you embrace leadership, it's really important to remain open, to constantly be learning and embracing feedback, and not to learn so you have more knowledge, but so that you grow in your knowledge, you grow in your ability as a leader, you grow in the skills that you need. And when you receive that feedback and ask for feedback, I think that's one of you have to be humble. You have to have a level of humility as a leader to that you may not have as a practitioner, to really be able to get into that role even more. I know for myself that my entire career, I always ask feedback along the way. And without that feedback, I would not be in this seat. I would not be here being able to speak to you and work with owners every single day to be their own leaders. And a key characteristic that I would say is really focus on developing people. When you become a leader, you start to think about other people, and you start to think about, how do I help that person to reach their full potential? And if you could become a true developer of people, that is the best leadership style, in my opinion. And because that's what we're here to do. Leaders are supposed to make leaders for the future. Leaders are supposed to create succession plans and have all of the things in place so that organizations can continue to move on and go through their phases in their development. But if you're not focused on developing your people, if you don't focus on that, you're not doing your job as a leader. And I think that's the key characteristic that I would say to take away from this.
Thank you for that wrap up. That was highly valuable. And so tell me, Adam and Tom, or Atomic, how are you going to help our listeners in 2024? What things that you have going on for next year?
Yeah, so I think our main mission for us is what we've identified and really focused in on who we are trying to help and who we are working with. And it's a term that is not very well known. It's someone called a purple collar professional. Have you ever heard of that, Sam or Howard?
I haven't. Tell me about it.
Great. So what a purple collar professional, and I didn't create this name, someone else did. As we were starting to identify who's gravitating towards us, who do we do the best work for? It was these people. And how you can figure out who they are is, it's an industry that has both blue collar and white collar aspects to what they do. Like Tom was mentioning, the physical therapist, they have to write out reports, know the human anatomy, have this professional education, but then they actually have to put hands on patients. We
Mhm.
work with an architect right now that he has to go and design amazing, beautiful buildings and sit in front of the computer doing CAD work and all these other things. But then he has to go on site and actually help them to build this structure. So we are finding that people who are in these types of industries usually came into it because they worked for somebody else and they were a very good practitioner. They decided, hey, let's become an owner and do this. And they are really, really good at the blue collar and the white collar work, but they have no clue how to run a business. And when you start to add these three main responsibilities or oversights, I got to make sure the blue collar stuff is getting done and the white collar stuff is getting done. And oh, yeah, I got payroll to handle and I need SOPs. And wait a minute, what systems am I using? That's where all of a sudden their own success is their demise. They reach a level of success and they're at this capacity where now they have to focus on the business and they can't do the blue collar. So sales go down. They have to focus on the white collar. So the business suffers and you're 90 days in arrears on some of your bills. So we come in to help cultivate these types of people to choose which of these areas do you really want to focus on. And we had one of our companies, he was the rock star in the blue collar aspect, and it was a restoration company. And they went out, fire, water, or mold damage to a home or a corporate building, and it would get damaged. And he was literally in there ripping up carpets and sucking out the water and rebuilding the structure. Well, we took that person in 18 months from doing 600,000 to $3.3 million because they realized they should not be doing that, because while they were really good at it, they're much better at running the business. Okay. And that gentleman doesn't even do the white collar. His wife is actually the CEO of the company now. So he goes out there and he's basically business development. He develops the relationships and manages all of that and brings in the opportunities. She leads the team and the blue collar guys do all the actual work. And to have that kind of growth in 18 months for someone that was making 60 grand a year working for somebody else 2 years ago was incredible. But that's what we're really working on, is trying to help those types of people. And here's why, Sam. I think that's the future of the small businesses in the United States of America. Because if you do blue collar and white collar, a machine, AI, cannot really take that work away from you. You still need the human touch. Yes, AI technology can assist you in doing that more efficiently, but you'll never remove the human.
That's right. I totally agree. Well, thank you, Tom. Do you have any final words?
No, I just want to thank you for, having us on here. This is great, and we want to make sure that, if for your listeners out there that, we had the privilege to be here today, but you guys do such a great job all the time. And I would encourage your listeners and encourage anybody that's not subscribed to you to really listen to you, subscribe to you, follow you, because the valuable work and the valuable advice that you offer and the great guests that you bring on this show, I think is invaluable to people. And I think that people should benefit from that. So definitely follow, Sam and Howard here at the People Strategy, and make sure that you follow them and you give them feedback and to make their show better so that they could produce a better product for you and continue to serve you in that way. So thanks for having us here.
Yeah, thank you so much, Tom and Adam. It was a pleasure having you on. All right. Well, take care, and everyone have a happy holiday season, and we'll see everyone next month or next week on the People Strategy Forum. So take care.
Happy holidays, guys.
Take care.
All right. Thank you very much, everyone. So I really appreciate your time today. It was great.
No
Great.
problem.
Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah. All right. Well, any feedback on how everything went, or?
No, it's great. I mean, you structured it really well. It was nice having another host there to interject and ask different questions. So yeah, I hope that your listeners got something out of it that's useful. Because I know we're kind of a different path than your typical HR type person or anything like that.
No, it was. I can tell it was hugely impactful. Matter of fact, I'll be referring this to a lot of my clients to listen in on. So I really appreciate the wisdom that you shared with us today.
Great. Thank you.
Well, any next steps or anything we can do for you?
Well, the next steps is that we're going to be processing the podcast, and right now it's on live stream, and so so it'd be good to go in and share that with your people, and I think it's currently on my my LinkedIn. I'll be moving that around. And then the next is in about a couple of weeks, we'll be releasing the to podcast, and we'll be sending you some materials that you can help promote and spread the
Great.
word.
Okay. What platforms are you putting it on from the live stream? So LinkedIn.
Oh, so it's on LinkedIn is the primary piece where we get most of our listeners, and then we have it on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. And so, under the People Strategy Forum, and then the Facebook. Yeah, so I'll show you those links so that you can.
Great. Yeah, because then I'll go in and we'll share it across for those 3 as well. All right.
Perfect. All right. Thank you so
All right,
much.
yeah.
Right.
Thanks,
Thanks
Sam.
for having us. Have a great
All
holiday.
right, have a good one.